Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Thought Leaders Now, our new format for American Thought Leaders. Today, I have the host of California Insider, Siamak Karami, here with me. And he is also the maker of an amazing new documentary, Leaving California, that's on epochtv. Siamak, so great to have you.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you for having me.
It's a real pleasure and honor because we've been working together for years, kind of on different sides of the continent with the Epoch Times. Then suddenly you alerted me that you had gotten into the documentary making business. And, and it's actually kind of a very sad story, but a really eye-opening story, Leaving California. And it's also, as the subtitle says, the untold story. What did you find?
This was a chance for us to go out of the studio to talk to the people that are leaving the state and find out why they're leaving the state. And what I found is most people that are leaving the state, they love the state. They don't want to leave, but they have to. They have to because they can't buy a home or the cost of living is high. Crime is going up. They can't find good schools for their kids. Their businesses have been impacted by laws or regulations that are happening. But it's a tragedy. It's a tragic story. But also through the process of talking to these people, we kind of found out what's wrong with the state for the ones that are staying, because the people that are staying are the ones that have to put up with what's going on now.
On the one hand, I mean, California is an incredibly affluent, I would say administrational body. Its economy is bigger than most countries in the world, right? It's got all these incredible companies, some of the largest in the world that are based there. It's got this, ostensibly very high standard of living. And at the same time, we have crime going through the roof. We have just all these unbelievable social problems, right? And so people find it very hard to square this.
Yeah, and when you come here as an immigrant, I came here in 2001. It was almost 22 years ago. It was amazing. Like, it was very clean, spotless, it was safe. You could do anything, and the opportunity there was amazing. Like, when I was going to college, I was expecting when I come out, I can do anything. If I work hard, I can achieve this. But things are changing. 27% of Californians are immigrants. It's almost double the national average, which is like 14%. When the immigrants come to California, they all come to build a better life. And what's happened in the state, what I noticed, people like me that work very hard and we're busy doing what we do to build our life here in this country, we haven't really paid attention to what's happening. And we trust the media and we trust the government.
Your family came from, which is from Iran. So, it's almost like anything you would do here is a heck of a lot better.
Absolutely. Like, the media in Iran never criticizes. The media is the government. Here you have the media, you trust, okay, this is America, this is, and the values of the people is different. The values of the government is different. The value of the media is different. So you don't really question. So we just take the information as we get it and just don't question it. And this is the theme across the board in California. I think what's happened is that a lot of people trust the mainstream media, like big papers in big cities, but the mainstream media is not really holding the government accountable, and it's not even reporting on the issues that average people are facing. So let's get into crime. We started talking to people about crime. Retail thefts are significantly higher, but if you look at the mainstream papers, big city papers, I don't want to name them, but everybody knows them. Big papers in California, they're saying crime is not up. It's not significantly up. Maybe there's some percentages, maybe it's like up by 15%, 10%. But then you go to a store and you see like a $20 item locked up. If it's up 10%, 20%, do you think the stores will lock the item up? As a reporter, do you question these things? Do you talk to the retailer? We talked to some business owners that they had to leave the state because they had so much theft. They couldn't, we've talked to businesses that have shut down because of theft. And, but then the reporters that are in the media, they are not really either not paying attention or they're ideologically aligned with the lawmakers and the laws that are being passed. So they're not talking about these things.
Kind of reality be damned? Is that what you're suggesting here? Like, this is what I'm struggling to understand. And of course, we are seeing that kind of thing, not just in California, to some extent.
Yeah, so if you look at other examples, during the making of this documentary, we talked to some parents that left the state. because they were not happy with the public education, public schools here. The state leaders, lawmakers, media, they all care about brown and black kids. But the proficiency rates on math for brown and black kids is less than 20%. And it stayed the same in the last decade. It's the same. But the spending on the public education has gone up from almost $10,000 per student per year to around $23,000 per student per year in the last decade. Meanwhile, the unions are doing strikes all the time. And average people in California, they think, okay, teachers are not getting paid enough. We need to fund education. We need to care about brown and black kids. We need to do our best. We can't leave them behind. But average people in California have no idea that the schools are failing and we're spending all the money that we can.
You know, and so where's this money going in this example?
It's a good question. It's going to the unions, and the unions have created their public school unions, the California Teacher Associations. They have a lot of influence in the politics of California, and they're lobbying for different causes, and they have a significant amount of power over politicians in California. And imagine, California is a Democrat state, you know, and one of the top funders of Democrats is the unions. And what happens is that if you're a politician and the unions don't like you, they can immediately cancel you, because they'll cut your funding and then they'll run somebody against you that they like, and they give them all the funding. And then the media is on their side too. So with this, the unions have a significant amount of control over what's happening. But where the money goes, it's a big question to me, because it doesn't seem like, even when you do the math, it doesn't seem like teachers are making significantly higher. It's like somewhere this money is getting lost in the system, which is a really big question.
Fascinating. No, you know, perhaps for another
documentary.
But I'm just thinking of this clip that you showed me a while back, right? Where you're talking about this almost like performative activity of the lawmakers trying to outdo themselves in, for example, you know, passing, was it 40 climate change bills? I think that's what it said. Let's roll the clip and take a look.
It's almost as if they're trying to outdo each other with these hyperbolic pieces of legislation that are passing. The governor just signed 40 climate change bills. 40 climate change bills. And frankly, we are the cleanest state in the entire country.
There's no other jurisdiction in the world that's doing what the state of California is doing.
Gas mowers will one day be a thing of the past. A revolutionary plan that would ban the sale of new gas-powered vehicles.
Ban on gas stoves.
Banning new gas leaf blowers.
All gas water heaters, along with ending the sales of all gas furnaces by the year 2030.
And so they're always going to worry about some guy who's Mexican-American down in Mendota who's driving a 1981 diesel pickup. And they're going to say, you know what? If you don't put your DEF additive into that old car and retrofit it for $5,000, we're going to make you take that off the road. But they think nothing of flying to Davos or overseas in a private jet.
Before we discuss this, so there's a backstory to this, and people, when people watch the documentary, they see this story. We talked to somebody that has 3 jobs in California. She's leaving because she's making $60,000 a year and she can't make it. She's trying really hard. When I talked to her about her story, I had this vision of American dream. You know, when I came here in California, I was like, okay, if you work hard, you can make it. And then seeing this lady trying really hard and not being able to make it, because the costs are so high. And when we dig into the cost of living, you're like, okay, why is the cost so much higher in California? One of the factors is all the taxes on energy. Gasoline in California costs 40% more than the national average. And utility costs more than double of the national average. We are passing these laws, we're regulating energy and gas, utility and all that because we want to go green. So these laws that get passed is at the expense of the average Californian. The average Californian has to pay for this. So the clip that you saw, it's like, okay, we're passing these 40 climate bills. 5 years from now, things might get a lot more expensive because of these bills that we passed. But people forget about that. People will just think, okay, this is like California. It's just the way it is. But we don't really go back and look into the details of what kind of law passed. Before, I think the media was doing that. Before, the media used to hold people accountable, and they would go back into a law and they would criticize the law. And this is what our job was with this documentary, to actually showcase. And I was shocked by how disconnected the state legislatures and leaders are from the average Californian, which they talk about. We want to lower the cost of housing for average Californians. They talk about this all the time. But at the same time, they pass a law that makes solar mandatory for all new homes, which costs another $30,000 to $40,000 per new home for each individual to buy. So they are talking about the policies, but at the same time, they are doing the opposite of it when it comes to lawmaking. But there is an influence of a special interest as well that is very powerful.
So you mean like a sort of electrical grid, greening the electrical grid lobby or something like that?
Yeah, so there is that element, which we're hearing that a lot of the lobbyists are writing laws in California. They have so much influence that are pushing laws.
Fascinating.
But then there's an ideological group that they want to go green. And then the special interest and then some lawmakers that are more about their own interest and their own future, and they want to raise funds for their future campaigns. They got aligned with this ideological faction, and they are kind of leading California in a certain direction that is unfortunately hurting the average Californian.
The formula, if I'm getting this right, is you have people that have certain specific ideologies with people who are lobbying for specific interests, with people who are just generally opportunistic politically.
Yes.
And then together that equation yields a kind of very problematic outcome, I guess.
Yeah, and on top of it is the media. The media is fine with all of that because they're ideologically aligned with these things. They're not questioning the statistics. They're not questioning, well, you know, stores are shutting down because of crime, but the statistics say it's not high. So let's just run with the story. They're not looking in deeper into the laws to analyze, like, okay, we just passed 40 climate bills. The price of gasoline, is it going to go up 5 years from now? Do more people get impacted? Do we have more poor people as a result of this? Somehow that critical thinking has gone out the door from the media. And that's why we really made this documentary, especially for people that have been staying out of politics and news. You know, California is very nice. The weather is great. And people are entrepreneurial, they are busy, they might not be paying attention. And state laws are boring. For people that haven't really figured out what's happening, and one day they wake up and look at the state and say, we didn't have this 10 years ago, we didn't have the theft, we didn't have the homelessness, we didn't have all these problems. It wasn't like this 10 years ago or 20 years ago. For those people, if they watch this documentary, they can actually see why.
You know, you cover a whole bunch of, you know, specific areas where there's been change, right? Obviously, crime we mentioned earlier. We mentioned the educational system. You're saying that that's kind of static, like it hasn't changed much, I think? Well,
a lot of money has gone into it, and it's stayed static in terms of performance. And also, we're trying to bring equity in, so we are punishing the high-performing students. We don't want to offer those classes because we think it's racist, or all the students should be the same. And we're making it so easy for kids to pass the tests. And essentially, we're seeing that the kids have so much power now. There's no discipline in the school. A lot of things are changing. Proficiency is staying at the same level or getting a little bit worse, but spending is going up. And a lot of things in the school system is kind of getting out of control from discipline side of things, from that.
It's basically a lot of what you would call very progressive policy.
Absolutely, yeah. And the purpose of the documentary wasn't for us to get into politics. You know, something people should know, and I'm sure your audience knows, that Epoch Times, we're about the people. We're the voice of the people. And we want to help these policymakers, these leaders, to understand what they're doing. Because what's happening right now in California, if you're a policymaker and you really genuinely care about the people and you want to pass a law to help with education, to help with the criminal justice system, and your law is a really bad law that you passed, and your ideas are really bad, you don't get any feedback because your friends in the media are going to tell you crime is not up, everything is okay. So you take their article, you tweet it to all your fans, and you say, okay, I'm doing a great job.
One of the themes that has come out in many American thought leaders episodes is that there's this kind of paternalistic view among, the American elites and to some extent, and frankly, and a lot of leadership, especially in the bureaucracies, more so even than among elected officials, where it's basically like, well, we actually know what's best for you. You might actually not really understand that, but that's okay. We're still going to do it because we know it's better for you. Strikes me as incredibly undemocratic for starters.
And it's un-American. Mm-hmm. So when I came here, one of the fascinating things I saw is like how people are tolerant of other people's ideas. And I saw it, believe it or not, in a football game. When you look at a football game, and I'm come from Iran, and I look at the field, I don't understand anything about football. It looks like a bunch of big guys hitting each other. I'm a soccer fan, I come here, and as I start to learn the football game, what I see is happening, what's happening in the stands, in the audience, is amazing. In a soccer game in Iran or other countries, they usually have to have a fence between the fans of different teams because they kill each other. If the people get violent, they get angry. But in this country, you see the fans of different teams watching the game and cheering and talking and saying, oh, your player did a good play. It was a great play, or it didn't do a good play. And that shows how open-minded this culture is for having different views. Somehow we're losing that in the government and the media. We are not able to work together, have different ideas. It's still alive in the corporate world. In the corporate world, in my business experiences in California, in San Diego, good CEOs would have like 10 executives, and then everybody has ideas, and then they try different ideas, and then they quickly want to know which one doesn't work, and then they say, you know what, we made a mistake, this was a bad idea, we're going to do a new one, we're going to try something else. And the fascinating part of this American culture is that you get forgiven for making mistakes. You can be a celebrity, you lie or do something, you can even go to prison and then come back and say, you know what, I made a mistake, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. And you could get famous again. And this is what we're losing in the government.
I want to comment on this a little bit, because I remember you telling me, years ago now, about how when you were, a young entrepreneur trying to figure things out, all these people were just kind of coming out of the woodwork wanting to help you, and without, you even particularly even trying so much, that it was just such a natural thing.
Yeah.
And it kind of stunned you, actually.
Yeah. People want you to become successful. People want you to help you. And this culture is there too. People are very open, and they want to give you a chance to help you get to the next level.
I have to say, you've always have this wonderful optimistic view. There's a lot of people, and I imagine a number of the people that have ultimately decided to leave, right, that you've talked to, or just said, okay, I'm done. I love this state. It was great, but I'm done here. There's just too much that's kind of against me. And you still have this attitude, like you think you can change things.
The film and what our coverage is of California can help the Californians to see what's going on, and they will change things. And imagine these Californians, they're very compassionate. They're very hardworking. They're very innovative. A lot of innovations start in California.
Well, in a moment, we'll finish up, and I'll roll a few minutes at the beginning of the film just to give people a flavor of what it's all about. Any final thoughts?
Pay attention to California and watch this movie, because these policies are coming to your state if you're not in California. And if you are in California, or if you have friends in California, make sure to share this documentary with everyone.
Well, Siam Akrami, it's such a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Jan.
I loved California. There was a point in my life where I was all about, I'm gonna get a tattoo that says California grown. That is me. I used to love everything about it.
Look at our weather outside today, sunny and 72. We're not having a hurricane.
Diverse geography, talented and diverse population.
Hollywood, the entertainment business, beautiful men and women.
It's really got everything. I mean, it's a nation state.
It had the 5th largest economy in the world. It has 4 of the top universities rated of the top 25 in the world. So it was very hard to destroy that inheritance. But we did. And how do you quantify that?
The fact that 300,000 more people left the state than moved in light of California being such a wonderful place, is unbelievable.
People are leaving to go to places that are what once was known as hell, hot Texas or desert Nevada, that have become paradise in their mind. And we took paradise and turned it into hell.